you've checked your balance. Again. And it's the same number it was 3 weeks ago. Maybe slightly less. You've been working, you haven't done anything wildly reckless, and yet somehow, the account just stays flat. Or shrinks. Like water evaporating from a shallow dish. You never see it leave, but one day you look and it's gone. Here's what most people do at this point. They blame themselves. They think they're bad with money or undisciplined or just not built for this. And then they go searching for a budget, a spending tracker, a 5-step plan. They try harder. They cut lattes. They download an app. And 3 months later, same balance. Same frustration. Same quiet, nagging sense that everyone else figured something out that they didn't. I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. The reason your bank account isn't growing almost certainly has nothing to do with your spending habits. It has nothing to do with how much you earn, your willpower, or whether you use a debit card instead of a credit card. The problem runs deeper than any of those things. And until you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface of your financial life, no amount of budgeting will fix it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real mechanism behind stagnant finances. We're going to look at what the data actually says, what behavioral economists have spent decades studying, and why the advice most people receive about money is not just incomplete, it's quietly working against them. Let's start with what's real. The average American household income, as of the most recent data from the U.S. Census Bureau, sits at roughly $80,000 per year. That's about $6,600 a month before taxes. After taxes, employer deductions, and other withholdings, most people in that bracket take home somewhere between $4,200 and $4,800 monthly. That is not a small amount of money. That is, by global standards, a genuinely significant sum. And yet, according to a 2024 report from Bankrate, 57% of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense from their savings alone. More than half of the country, earning average or above average wages, could not handle a single car repair without going into debt or asking someone for help. So where does it all go? The standard answer is spending. Too much eating out. Too many subscriptions. Amazon addiction. Coffee shops. Lifestyle creep. And look, those things are real. They do matter. But they are symptoms. They are not the disease. And treating symptoms while the underlying condition goes untouched is exactly why so many people try budgeting, feel disciplined for a month, and then find themselves right back where they started. The actual root cause of why most bank accounts never grow has a name. It's called structural financial drag. And it works so quietly, so incrementally, that most people never notice it until years have passed, and the math becomes undeniable. Here's what structural financial drag looks like in practice. Imagine a woman named Dana. She's 34, earns $72,000 a year, and considers herself reasonably careful with money. She has a car payment of $410 a month. Her apartment is $1,650. She carries a credit card balance of about $4,200 that she's been slowly paying down or trying to. She has a gym membership she uses occasionally, 2 streaming services, and a phone plan. She buys groceries, pays utilities, fills her gas tank. Nothing dramatic. Nothing irresponsible. Just a normal American life. But here's the number that changes everything. Dana pays approximately $340 a month in interest. Not in principal. Not in purchases. Pure interest. On the credit card, on the car loan, across various accounts. $340 a month that doesn't buy her anything, doesn't build anything, and doesn't return anything. It simply disappears into the margins of the institutions she borrowed from. Over a year, that's more than $4,000. Over 5 years, more than $20,000. Vanished. Not spent on experiences or items or even necessities. Just gone. As the tax on borrowing that she barely registers as a line item because it's spread across 3 or 4 different accounts and hidden in the fine print of monthly statements. This is the structural drag. And Dana is not unusual. She is statistically remarkably average. Now here's the part that makes it worse. Because Dana's cash flow is tight, because that $340 a month is being extracted before she even decides what to do with her money, she has almost nothing left over at the end of the month. Which means when an unexpected expense shows up, she charges it, which increases the balance, which increases the interest, which tightens the flow further. This is not a spending spiral. This is a structural trap. And the people inside it aren't there because they lack discipline. They're there because the system is designed to keep them there. Let's look at the data on this, because I think numbers have a way of cutting through assumptions in a way that anecdotes sometimes can't. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent consumer credit report, total revolving debt in the United States, which is primarily credit card debt, exceeded $1.3 trillion. The average household carrying a balance owes approximately $7,200 in credit card debt alone, at an average interest rate of roughly 21%. That household is paying, on average, between $125 and $150 per month purely in credit card interest. And here's what that number represents in lost opportunity. If that same household redirected those interest payments into a simple index fund earning historical average returns of around 8% annually, over 30 years that monthly amount would compound to somewhere in the range of $180,000 to $220,000. The interest payments people make on consumer debt are not just money spent. They are wealth permanently destroyed. The future version of yourself, the one who is supposed to have a cushion, a safety net, options, is being funded by the financial institutions you owe, not by you. And this is where the conversation shifts from frustrating to actually actionable. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can disrupt it. But before we get to solutions, I want to spend a moment on something that I think is even more important than debt interest and far less discussed. It's called invisible cost absorption, and it might be the single biggest reason your savings never seem to accumulate even when you're being careful. Here's what invisible cost absorption means. Every lifestyle upgrade you've made in the last 5 years has been absorbed into your baseline. That means it no longer feels like an upgrade. It feels like a necessity. The slightly better apartment you moved into 3 years ago, your brain has recalibrated. That's just where you live now. The subscription services that felt like indulgences when you first signed up, they're background noise. The instinct to buy the name brand, the organic option, the slightly nicer version, that didn't happen all at once. It happened gradually over time as your income rose and your standards quietly rose with it. This is what economists call hedonic adaptation. And it is relentless. Here's the cruel math of hedonic adaptation. Studies on income and happiness, including well-documented research from behavioral economists at Princeton and later revised by Matthew Killingsworth at Wharton in 2021, suggest that life satisfaction continues to rise with income beyond the previously cited $75,000 threshold. But here's the catch. The rate of satisfaction gain slows dramatically. You earn more, but you also want more. And the gap between those two things, between what you earn and what you now expect as normal, stays surprisingly constant. What this means practically is that many people who get a raise don't save more. They feel slightly less stressed for a few weeks, upgrade something, and 6 months later are wondering why they feel the same as before. The raise got absorbed. Not maliciously. Not through recklessness. Just through the invisible, automatic recalibration that human beings are wired to perform. This is why income alone never solves the problem. This is why people earning $150,000 can feel just as financially stuck as people earning $55,000. It's not a math problem. It's a psychology problem disguised as a math problem. If you're finding this useful, if this is helping you see your financial situation more clearly, I want to ask you to do something right now. Hit like and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, it helps this channel enormously, and I promise that if you stick around, every video here is designed to give you this kind of clarity. Not surface-level tips, but the deeper mechanics that actually explain what's happening with your money. Now let's keep going because this is where things start to shift. Understanding the problem is valuable, but understanding is not the same as change. So let's talk about what disrupting structural financial drag actually looks like in practice. The first shift is not about spending less. It's about sequencing differently. Most people follow a pattern that looks like this: earn money, pay bills, live life, save whatever's left. The problem with this sequence is that whatever's left is almost always nothing. Life expands to fill available financial space, and the savings slot at the end of the line almost never gets funded. The people who consistently grow their bank accounts do something that sounds simple, but requires a complete rewiring of instinct. They pay themselves first. They treat savings not as the remainder after everything else is handled, but as the first bill, the most important and non-negotiable line item in their financial life. The moment income arrives, a fixed amount moves to a separate account, ideally one that's slightly inconvenient to access, before anything else happens. This isn't a new idea, but the reason it works isn't just behavioral. It's structural. You are removing the money from the decision-making environment entirely. You can't spend what you don't see. You can't absorb what isn't available. The lifestyle recalibration that Dana's brain would otherwise perform simply doesn't happen, because the resource isn't there to absorb. Research from Vanguard's How America Saves report consistently finds that participants in automatic enrollment retirement plans, where contributions happen without any active decision required, save significantly more than those who must manually opt in and initiate contributions. The mechanism isn't willpower. The mechanism is friction removal for saving and friction addition for spending. This is the architecture of financial growth. Not discipline. Architecture. The second shift is understanding the difference between price and cost. These sound like the same thing. They are not. The price of something is what you pay once. The cost of something is what you pay forever. When you commit to a recurring expense, a subscription, a payment plan, a lease, a membership, you are not making a single financial decision. You are making a decision that will automatically repeat itself month after month until you actively choose to stop it. And because of how human psychology works, canceling feels like losing something, even if what you're losing is something you barely use. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Marketing Research found that people dramatically underestimate how much they spend on subscriptions. In a study that asked participants to estimate their total monthly subscription costs before being shown their actual statements, the average person was off by nearly 100%. They thought they were spending roughly $80 per month on recurring services. The actual average was closer to $220. That gap, $140 a month in invisible recurring cost, represents $1,680 a year. Over a decade, compounded at reasonable investment returns, that's potentially $25,000 or more in foregone wealth. The subscriptions you forget you have are not a trivial concern. They are a symptom of a broader relationship with recurring financial commitments that most people have never genuinely examined. Car payments, insurance premiums, phone upgrades on installment plans, delivery service fees, cloud storage, premium tiers on apps you use 3 times a year. Every one of these felt like a reasonable individual decision at the time. Together, they form a floor of spending that drains money automatically every single month, regardless of how careful you feel you're being. The practice here is simple, though not always comfortable. Pull up your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements and circle every recurring charge. Don't judge, just identify. Most people are genuinely surprised by what they find. And surprise is often the beginning of change. The third shift is the most psychologically difficult, and it's also the most powerful. You need to stop relating to your financial present and start relating to your financial future. Here's what I mean by that. When most people think about saving or investing, they think about giving up something now for an abstract benefit later. That's a cognitively difficult trade to make because the brain is wired, deeply evolutionarily wired, to weight present rewards more heavily than future ones. This is called hyperbolic discounting, and it is one of the most replicated findings in behavioral economics. The way to work with this wiring rather than against it is to make the future version of yourself feel real and present. There's a striking piece of research from Hal Hirschfield at UCLA, published in the Journal of Marketing Research, where participants who were shown age-progressed digital images of themselves allocated significantly more of their hypothetical income to retirement savings than those who were shown their current images. The future self felt like a stranger. When the researchers made that future self visible, literally visually present, people became more willing to sacrifice for them. You can apply this principle without a research lab. The practice is to get specific. Not, I want to have more saved someday. But, in 7 years, I want to have $85,000 in a savings and investment account, which means I need to put aside $840 per month starting now. Specificity does something to the brain that vagueness cannot. It transforms an abstract intention into a concrete project. And human beings are far better at executing projects than sustaining intentions. Before we hit the final section, I want to pause and ask you something, because I'm genuinely curious. What is the specific financial milestone you most want to reach in the next 3 years? Is it a fully funded emergency fund? Paying off a specific debt? Hitting your first $20,000 in investments? Something else entirely? Drop it in the comments below. Not just because it helps me understand what to cover in future videos, but because writing it down even in a comment section is a form of commitment. It makes the goal external and real. And that, as we just discussed, is part of the architecture of actually getting there. Now, let's bring this together because I want to leave you with something clear and executable, not just conceptually interesting. The reason your bank account doesn't grow is almost certainly a combination of 3 things operating simultaneously. Structural drag from debt interest silently extracting money before you make any decisions. Lifestyle absorption making every income increase feel normal almost immediately so nothing accumulates. And default financial sequencing, where saving gets whatever's left, and whatever's left is rarely anything. None of these is a moral failing. None of them means you're bad with money. They are patterns, and patterns can be disrupted. The disruption looks like this. First, identify your structural drag. Add up every dollar per month you pay in interest across all accounts. Look at that number. Really look at it. Then build a concrete plan to eliminate the highest rate debt first, redirecting every freed-up payment toward the next balance when the first is cleared. This is commonly called the debt avalanche method, and mathematically, it is the fastest path through consumer debt. Second, audit your recurring costs with the same energy you'd bring to a financial emergency, because they are, quietly, a slow-moving one. Cancel or downgrade everything that doesn't actively add meaningful value to your life. Be ruthless. You can always resubscribe. Third, automate saving before you automate anything else. Decide on an amount, even if it feels uncomfortably small, and set up an automatic transfer to a separate account the day after your paycheck arrives. Treat this as non-negotiable. Over time, increase the percentage as debts clear and costs are reduced. And finally, connect your savings to a specific future, not a vague better life. A specific number, a specific date, a specific purpose. The future self who benefits from the decisions you make this month deserves to feel real to you. Because they are real. Your bank account doesn't grow because the system around you, the debt system, the subscription economy, the hedonic treadmill of lifestyle inflation, is extraordinarily well designed to prevent it. Not through malice necessarily, just through structure. Through the quiet math of default behaviors that nobody ever set you down and explained. You were never taught that paying yourself first changes the psychological architecture of spending. Nobody walked you through the compounding cost of minimum payments held for years. The idea that saving requires fighting your own brain's wiring rather than simply trying harder was probably never part of any conversation about money you had growing up. But now you know. And knowing, really knowing, understanding the mechanism rather than just the surface symptoms is the first and most important step toward changing the outcome. The number in your account is not a verdict on who you are. It is feedback on a system. And systems, unlike character, can be redesigned. Start with one thing. One recurring expense reviewed. One automatic transfer set up. One debt targeted specifically and aggressively. The compounding doesn't just happen with money. It happens with behavior too. Small changes, consistently applied, become the kind of financial life that looked, from the outside, like it belonged to someone else. It doesn't. It belongs to whoever builds it.